More music.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Mole Music. We are reporting to you live from under the earth, covered in dirt. 3 moles, no eyes to see, looking through the darkness with our independent music careers. We are underground musicians digging around, trying to find the light.
Yeah.
And I'd say
sinking deeper and deeper.
we are digging in the wrong direction. We have been. This podcast should be called the three decline. The decline. The three guys doing bad. It's the decline episode.
The Decline podcast.
Yeah, everything. All of our ideas are leading us nowhere. The podcast, but that's not actually true. I mean, of course,
Nah.
I'm just saying that because it's funny to me. And how about
Me
you?
too.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's funny to me
Only
as well.
only to you. Only to you.
All right, so the two
I
of
actually
us
hated
think it's
this
funny.
moment. It felt
Yeah.
terrible.
Add
So
it to
bad.
the list. Put it on my
Yes.
tab. We're going down. But today we're going to talk about David Lynch, and then that conversation will probably lead us in all sorts of directions because we are, by the time this is out, it's been a long time since talking about David Lynch's death is trendy. The reason we're talking about it is not necessarily because it's in the news, but because he is, all three of us, one of our most greatest influences. And for the first time, for me, I'm grieving a celebrity death. Like, this is the first one that really connected with me that I can remember, at least. Yeah, like growing up in high school, it was Steve Vai was my guiding light for creativity. Then Sufjan Stevens. Then Kendrick Lamar. Then back to Sufjan Stevens. And then David Lynch was the big, since 2020, the big like force pushing me forward into a sense of I'm excited about the future. I want to be here. Like, he really contributed to my general sense that I want to be around and making art. And so if Steve Vai or Sufjan Stevens or Kendrick Lamar died, I think I'd be pretty shook. But David Lynch is like the first person on that list of like musicians that really pushed my life in or artists that pushed my life in a positive direction. He's the first one that I've seen go away. And so
No.
I can speak for all three of us that him dying is something that is hard for all of us because we really love him. And I think we should talk about how he shaped us as artists and how we're feeling and what you can do to... It's a beautiful sadness, I think. This is the kind of sadness I want to have, the kind where it's something wonderful went away instead of something wonderful became terrible, because that's a different kind of sadness. This is my favorite kind of sadness to have, so I want to get into it.
Because there's like a lot of appreciation in it.
It's a constructive sadness. It's pointing out just how bright the light in a person can be and how much good that can do for others.
No. I actually find it a difficult topic to talk about because in my mind it easily leads to the trite idea of like, it's really sad and, you know, I really appreciated his art and blah, blah, blah. But it's good to reflect on it nonetheless, of course. I think it's hard to put to words when you've engaged with an artist's work for many years. I think end of high school is when I started watching his movies like Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive. And, you know, engaging with his philosophy behind the work and stuff like that. It's interesting. Also from the perspective of, oh, I would have loved to see more of his work and what could have been. But then also realizing, well, he hasn't released in a long time, but still it's like there's a source of light, of hope that you had there that's kind of taken away. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling about it.
You're not.
Definitely not.
I think that your instinct that it might be trite for you to talk about this, or it's easy to go in a trite direction, is unfair to yourself. And I think it's not. You have a unique relationship with his work. I mean, that's one of the most incredible things about art in general, is how much it transforms in the people who receive it, and how much it can do to change them. I think like it's easy to forget the value of art and music, sort of, because it's like, no, you're not going to write a song that's going to stop Donald Trump from trumping, and you're not going to write a song that's going to stop like people from going hungry. But
no,
we need a way of life that is generally positive, and when somebody can inspire you to pursue life with like a sense that there's an abundance of stuff to enjoy and look forward to about life, that is so helpful. And I feel like David Lynch really did that for so many people, gave us a belief that, first of all, there's mystery and beauty in everything, and then second of all, you can expand your consciousness. Like, you can actually appreciate your world more. And he doesn't even make it sound like it's hard to do. He kind of helps you learn how to do it just through everything he does and what he talks about.
No.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, one of the things I think of when I think of him is like Twin Peaks, and how it changed and highlighted the relationship I had with the place where I grew up, which is Washington State, and kind of highlighted something that I feel is there and like everywhere in America to some degree, which is kind of like this underlying darkness that just exists in people and exists more in places that are really beautiful, where people are a little bit more isolated, and their lives take a certain shape. And yeah, I feel like I couldn't quite put my finger on why, like what I thought about where I grew up. And then I watched Twin Peaks like 3 times, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's like, it's just got this thing, this darkness that truly does exist there, and maybe not in such a magical way, but I also love the idea of expressing it in a magical way, because I think like any good fiction, it can point to the realness of what we're dealing with as humans when you take something outside of the world and put it in the world, and it just like helps you understand it, I think.
Do you feel like it recontextualized your hometown in a way, or?
Yeah, for sure. And just like, you know, not with like the broadest brush, like not just like, yeah, I grew up in Twin Peaks basically, you know. But like,
I was there when Laura Palmer died.
Yeah, that was my high school.
You grew up in season 3 though. Like Auburn reminds me of season 3 of Twin Peaks. For people who haven't seen Twin Peaks, it's just a classic, very Lynchian thing of juxtaposing this idyllic kind of quiet small town with a bunch of happy, quirky characters with some really traumatic, horrifying stuff that lurks just beneath the surface. And in season 3, they expand it beyond just the town of Twin Peaks, and you see all this darkness all over America, and it's as if the darkness has like leaked out and spread everywhere. And so now we have this journey into Las Vegas and all these other places. And Jessica's like growing up in Auburn, Washington, you go there and it's like, it's a little methy, and it's a little there's probably some terrifying secrets, in those homes, and
Yeah.
and you even hear things from, we know people who grew up there who have told us things like really messed up things that happened to them when they lived there that no one had a clue about.
Yeah.
No one knew about, and it was just happening. And if you look at it from the most surface level, you only get the pain. You only get the horror of a place like that.
Mm.
And when you look at it through a David Lynch kind of perspective, you see, I think, more easily the forces maybe that maybe you see it in a more feeling, thinking way, where it's not just the horror and not just the actions that took, but you sort of see how this sort of darkness kind of comes out of a person, and how evil kind of manifests, and in this kind of psychic, dreamlike way, he'll show you the depths below the surface level pain, which I find very comforting, because it feels like something you can fight in a way, like not in a guy with a sword versus a dragon kind of fight, but in a relentless optimism kind of way. A lot of David Lynch's characters that he'll place as juxtapositions, as sort of foils against this darkness, are people who are stubbornly optimistic.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's kind of what I was trying to get at, is that you fight all the worst things in life by stubbornly insisting on living, and living well, and trying to like see the beauty in the world. I think that's what you could say Twin Peaks is about to me overall.
Yeah, I don't have the background of growing up in America, of course. So I have a different relationship to it, I guess. I think what's important to note, though, what especially someone who hasn't seen Lynch's work might not know, is that all of that is not done through dialogue. Like, it's all hinted at in subtext, and like it's shown, right? Because it's film. It's a lot of show, don't tell, essentially, which we've talked about before. Which fascinates me a lot, because it can still be about the like surface level story that is revealed through dialogue, like Laura Palmer's death and the mystery of who killed her. But then on the surface, it's actually about, or in the depth rather, it's about something totally different. It's about the evil in men, if you will, and well, you can spin it however you want, really. It's kind of open what it's actually about.
Yeah, I love how much he, in his work, he inspires you to be creative. What was your experience watching the documentary the other night? We watched The Art Life, a documentary about David Lynch.
Nice. That's a good one. I
felt so inspired by watching him work, and it's a really cool documentary. Highly recommend it. Especially because it's made in a special way where you hear his voice telling a story while you see him working, or you see his like finished art pieces kind of like showing the story like through his work. And so you just see kind of this direct path from like trauma to art, and it's just like a lot of times very literally there in like multiple pieces or one piece in particular. And it's just really cool. And I remember just like feeling how distinctive and stylized his work is, in like it's so far like cohesive in his like movies and television, but also like in his visual art, like it also like is all one kind of language and one kind of expression, even when he first started. And I just got this sense of like, wow, a lot of the things that I make through visual art are like me tracing a picture, and like that is stylized in a certain way, but also like I don't know what my visual style really is right now, and like that's just really, it just made me really want to find out what it is, and like try, you know, some of the cool, like it makes you just like want to get your hands dirty, like him combining like 3D sculpture, clay with painting and canvas, and having things stick out, and it just makes you go like, oh dang, that sounds like fun, and like I don't know what would like come of that, and it would probably be a pretty enlightening time in like me getting to know myself. And yeah, and also that aspect of him working out his stuff through the art, I'm like, wow. I had this idea for a long time that maybe someday I would write like a memoir about my childhood, because like, you know, everyone's childhood is full of like really weird moments and interesting things, and I feel like I have a particularly good memory, and so I'd be interested in doing that. But I also was just like, oh, maybe this form of like, here's some more of those weird like moments I remember really well, and like maybe I can just show them here instead to have people feel them in this way.
With drawings and with sculpture and with
poetry and
I would really love to see what you do without reference, because Jessica's been using reference a lot, and she's so good at looking at an image and then rendering it in 2D with all the details, which is great foundation. I'm really curious for going off the rails, because those same details, you'll have an intuition for where they could go, like shading. I mean, even upstairs we're painting our walls with Sweetie Cuties and stuff, and
oh cool,
you know, I'd make a tree, and then she would come in and do these dots and stuff that imply shading and imply moss and gradations. And yeah, it'd be cool if you went freehand and saw what happened.
I just want to doodle
fun.
more.
Do more
is like the path.
You could have your own little characters.
Yeah.
Another version of Sweeties and Cuties.
Yeah.
You could do mixed media though. That'd be cool. You draw them and then you like clay over them and make it all textury and stuff. Yeah.
Right. What the heck? That sounds fun.
That'd be sick.
So if you've never checked out David Lynch, you want somewhere to start, I recommend checking out Mulholland Drive first. What do you guys think of that? I guess I should explain real quick to the audience. Mulholland Drive is a movie that really, I think, exemplifies like David Lynch's cinematic language and his respect for the viewer.
I would agree. I think Mulholland Drive is a very good one. Either that or Blue Velvet's probably, which is a bit older, but has that same style, same kind of feeling to it.
Yeah. Mulholland Drive was my entry point into David Lynch, and I really, really connected with it. And really, maybe it was like the first movie that had given that much like that much of the reins to the viewer to determine what's happening and what things mean. And I remember being pretty like, what the heck? It doesn't just tell you what happens?
Yeah, you keep expecting the explanation.
Yeah.
Oh,
but let's not spoil too much about the experience.
I don't want to.
But
yeah.
The reason I think it should be Mulholland Drive and not necessarily Blue Velvet is Blue Velvet's too scary.
It's very scary.
There's going to be like a broader camp of people who would see Blue Velvet and get way more disturbed, I think, than Mulholland Drive. Don't you think?
I guess it's scarier. I don't know if it's way scarier. I feel like they're all pretty scary.
They are, yes. I agree. I think the nature of the scary in Blue Velvet is
That's true.
Very it's more likely, I think, your average person or someone the average person knows has been in a
You have
situation
to be
like that.
comfortable with sexual like violence showing up in the work you consume. I think you have to be
Yeah.
it's not like anyone's comfortable seeing it. It's more just like
Okay.
that
yeah.
can't ruin
Derail.
the experience completely for you. And
Yeah.
that's one thing that's interesting with
I think
David
Mulholland
Lynch's
Drive
work.
is not free of that, but it's less.
It's not free of it, but
It's less.
Yeah.
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 David Lynch's work is so different from mine in this particular way. Like, as much as I've been influenced by him, I still wouldn't place my greatest fears into my work. I think he's got so much. I think, like, for him, the scariest, worst thing in the whole universe is when men harm women. And I think that's a top bad thing, is, people harming each other. But, like, particularly, I think the scariest thing to him is when men harm women. And so oftentimes in his work, the worst, nightmarish, most horrible things happen to women. And I think it's amazing that he is able to portray that kind of horror while also all the women that are the leads in his work keep wanting to work with him again and again and again. And I really think that speaks to the environment he creates on set and the way that his films use that kind of violence. I think that speaks volumes. Just the fact that, when he died, all these legendary female actors that he's worked with, like Naomi Watts and Patricia Arquette and help me with Laura Dern, yes,
Yeah.
and like just so many, they are like talking about him like he is just like the number one friend, like just the best guy ever. And I think that's another thing I really am inspired by him, is his courage to. It's courage when you make the most messed up thing you can think of in a really cool, kind, sweet way that doesn't mess up the people who are working on it, as opposed to like Stanley Kubrick. I can't get into the guy as much because he created an unpleasant experience for his actors, but David Lynch's actors were like, I don't think it probably wasn't fun all the time. It was probably scary, not. But they felt safe, I think.
Yeah.
From what I hear.
A lot of the content around it also, like documentaries, are all super positive and all praising him and how they worked with him, and and half the cast just comes back every movie, essentially.
Every time.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's so cool. That's part of why when he died, I didn't immediately feel like super sad, because I was like, that's how you get away with a clean life. Now that's a good life. 78 years old is not super old, but the people he worked with love him. All the work he made was special. Dune was special, even though that's like the one everyone talks about. It's his great sadness that Dune was a flop, but it was special though, for sure. And everything he did was so special, and he managed to spend most of his life doing what he wanted, more or less. Yeah, it's just like, that's a good way to end it. But then the sadness creeped in, because I just feel like the world is worse now, and now we have like one less beacon of light. And this guy, it's like transcendental meditation stuff. Like David Lynch started a foundation. Okay, taking a step back, transcendental meditation is a type of meditation that David Lynch says works really well for him, but it gets criticized because it's expensive to get into it. And a lot of rich people do transcendental meditation as a result. But David Lynch started a foundation to get transcendental meditation to people who can't afford it. And he would just talk, TM or whatever you're into, he would talk about mindfulness and like expanding your consciousness in this super optimistic way that just was like, anyone can do this. And it's great if you do. And I haven't meditated for more than like 10 seconds in my life. But I just appreciate knowing that, like, that's a path. You know, when things get bad, he's helped in that way too.
I got into it thanks to him. I started doing it. It's great.
Really?
Oh, you did
Yeah.
TM?
I haven't done TM, no, because
But meditating.
I started meditating, exactly. Yeah.
I definitely looked into it for a while and was like, I think like emailing with someone being like, so how do poor people do this? And I never got anywhere with it. But
I think we found out that the rates now are sliding scale based on your income.
really,
I think that's what we found out because we were going to do it, but it was like 3 days and we had just gotten Hineni, so that was too long.
Yeah.
I
I
would
don't even know if you
consider it
necessarily
again.
need to do TM if you're interested in meditation in general. Probably
Right.
it's like different roads to the same thing.
Yeah.
I do like the idea behind it that the reason why it's expensive is because they want you to work with an instructor in the beginning, and I like respect that idea that they don't want anyone just like going about it in their own way and then having a different kind of experience and then being like, I don't like it. Like, I feel like that's an interest. Like, it can be like scammy, but it also can be like like extra legitimate if, you know, people are like, well, we want you to have like this very specific experience to like mark the beginning, and then you can like work with yourself the rest of your life. And I just am like,
That's fair. Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah. I hope you try it.
Yeah.
So then I can know if it's good, and then I can try it.
Okay. Yeah.
We're working on it. I think I think, you know, we're doing our taxes now, and
That's fun.
I don't want to speak too soon, but I have a thought about how we could be more financially secure. And at the moment, it's a thought that seems very dark, maybe.
Mm.
Are you robbing
Maybe
a
it's
bank?
I'm going to rob a bank.
No.
The thought is, I don't know where I am on this yet.
Yeah.
This is the thought. It's not an opinion. It's just a what if. I looked back at my expenses, and the expense that I could not expend, the one that wasn't an essential thing, was paying for my album and my album's music video. And I'm wondering what will happen if I have to do all that stuff this year, minus mixing, I'll say, on my own. I will. The mixing usually doesn't cost that much. It's usually just everything combined. The studio day, the musicians, the mixing, the music video is a big one.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm saying this, and it's kind of like, of course you got to spend the money on your art. You got to do it. But I'm just wondering if I gave myself a break from that and caught up a bit, you know, I would still want to make the albums this year, and I think the mixing part, I can't really do it myself and really make the album a way that's worth making, because not because I can't do the mixing or I couldn't learn. It's because I don't like the music after I mix it.
Right.
I just don't like it anymore.
Yeah, that's valid.
So I don't want to not like it.
Have you ever thought about doing a crowdsourcing thing for an album?
I've thought about doing crowdsourcing for my new toy line that I want to make, but I don't think crowdsourcing for an album is tricky because it's like the amount of money I'd need to make the music video and the album is about $4,000, and it's like crowdsourcing has hidden costs to it. The way that you talk to your audience when you're crowdsourcing is sort of, it pollutes the internet a little bit, and you sort of have to trade. You can't do it more than once, I think. or if you do it more than once, it can't be like very consistent. There are exceptions to this. Like I know a Magic the Gathering channel that every single season they do on Patreon or on Kickstarter, but that is an immensely popular channel, and so they got a big Patreon, they got a big Kickstarter. You know, it's
what are hidden costs to a Kickstarter?
Well, you have to give Kickstarter some of the money, but the biggest hidden cost is the cost to your quality of your posts during that time.
And I also think, like, every Kickstarter that I've, like, known about and, like, talked to people about or been a part of, there's, similar to Patreon, there's just this, like, structure that becomes, like, you can start very optimistic as an artist starting your Kickstarter, where you're like, wow, this is going to be really cool. And I'll also, like I'm thinking of these really cool rewards that will make it really worth it for these people. Like, I'm really putting my heart into, like, making this, like, a good system, and, like, people actually, like, feeling like they get really what they need from supporting me. And then you do the thing and you're like, you know, that's cool. I don't have, like, the financial burden of, like, making this while you're making it. And then there's, like, the aftermath, which depends on, like, what kind of Kickstarter it is, and, like, what the rewards are and how involved they are. But I feel like the more you have put your heart and creativity into, like, developing the, like, higher tier rewards, like, oh, it's going to be really specific, like, I'm going to write a song for every single person who gives $1,000, and, like, that it won't be on the album, but it will be, like, just, like, whatever they want, and extra. I'll just and it's just, like, actually repaying those debts, even when you are the one who set up the terms of this loan, like, feels really bad. And, like, much worse than even, like, homework.
It's a ton of work.
It's a ton of work. And it's, like, things that, like, I think a lot of musicians struggle with. Like, even just, like, I'm going to mail out all of these rewards because they're physical items that I made. It's just, like, oh, shit, I didn't even think about, like, the shipping costs. This person lives in Iceland, and this is going to cost me, like, $70 to send them this $100 reward, you know? And it's just, like, tough. All of these, like, areas that you're, like, not great at, like, kind of being exposed. And, like, that, I feel like I have, like, kind of a jaded point of view, but that's just kind of been my experience. Is, like, it's hard to deliver even when you're really excited about it.
Yeah, I don't think you're being jaded.
I like the idea of tiers in it, because, like, if you're concerned about making a music video or something, you can be like, well, if we gather this amount of money through the campaign, then I can make a video, and that's part of the reward, I guess, and you can attach something else to it for higher backers or whatever.
I feel personally empowered by the idea of having a system that I can do multiple years. So the idea of, like, raising a certain amount of money for one album that won't then result in me not needing to raise money for future albums is less appealing than, say, like, just, like, making my albums more cheaply as a system in general, and making more money doing other things. I just think, like, I've noticed that my Bandcamp sales are a lot lower. Just, like, kind of everything is a lot lower. So it would make sense for my spending on the albums to be lower. And at the same time, you know, there's smart things I can do to make more money. But whatever it is, it's got to be, like, repeatable kind of a system. And I always feel like Kickstarter, it should really be a Kickstarter where there's something that's going to start after it is kicked, and it will run. And, like, maybe it will fail, but you're taking a chance on something that will actually run. Whereas if you kick my album, it won't start anything. It will finish. It'll be like, we made the album. Yes, thank you. But I feel like a really, like the Providence Vegan Deli's Kickstarter, for instance, was a good one because it allowed them to spend the money to get the business started, and then they were able to become a business that is like started. But I've been started. I got kickstarted by, going to Berkeley and stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
kickstarted by my parents.
Yeah,
I got kickstarted by my parents because going to Berkeley, that's like a $250,000 investment in my music career. And if you had given me that as cash, I wouldn't have a wife. So I'm glad that that's what the money went, or like that's where the money went, and that was a good kickstart. Yeah. And I don't want to discourage other people from doing Kickstarters for their albums.
Sure.
But I just personally, I want something to have started.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And my one warning with all of that experience that I've had is just that for the rewards, you like extra consider yourself and your like bandwidth on like a great day and like a hard day for doing extra things, even though you're like, well, they're paying me, so I gotta do it.
It's tricky because it's not they're paying you, they paid you already.
And the money, a lot of times by the time you're sending the rewards out or passing them around, the money is spent. And it is like, it's a really like odd position to be in, and just like
you should try to raise more than you think you need. And I guess to anyone who's doing a Kickstarter, if you're not really great at shipping lots of things out, don't make a reward that requires you to ship lots of things out.
Right.
And if you if you think you need $5,000 to do the thing, and then you're also going to have shirts, you need $10,000 to do the thing. Don't have shirts, by the way. I think a good, like, if I were to do a Kickstarter, it should be, here's the thing I'm making, and you get it if you support the Kickstarter. And then you have a really high paying option that is for people who really want to see this thing exist. And then what you do for them is maybe like something that you reasonably can imagine yourself doing that's not too crazy but is special. For instance,
a listening party.
Exactly. Listening party in person. I think the things that come into my mind are like, inviting them maybe to the end of the studio dates, and you actually like show them the progress of the album before it's like mixed, or you do a little concert for them somewhere as a group, if you're like, for anyone who is in this region, or you just record a few, like 1 or 2 extra covers or songs that you're like unsure if they'll make it onto the album. And then if they do get onto the album, you send them before the album's out or something, like you just give them like a bonus thing that, like, for me, those things more align with like what I like to do, and is like it's easier for me to invite people to a place to play for them. It's easier for me to record a little bit extra music, but it's like I never want to go to the post office ever, even for like
we have trauma with that.
We have trauma and drama
with the post office.
And I just I'm like, I never want to go to a post office ever again.
Are these
it's not
bad Bentley experiences, or
kind of? The post office didn't do anything wrong. It's just we had to what happened is in Bentley we had a publicist whose rate we could not afford, and they made a deal with us. It was like, all right, I'll only charge you this amount that you can afford, but then you have to do the actual shipping of all the packages with the press release, the letter to the publication, and the album in it. You have to do the shipping and the packaging and all that. And so it was like, right on. Now we got a publicist. This is sick. And so we get the addresses and the letters for all NPR, Pitchfork, Consequence of Sound, all the publications that you'd want to be in, Guitar World, you know?
Yeah.
And we're filling out all these, making all these packages, writing down these addresses, putting in the text, putting in the album, sealing them up, bring them to the post office. And we just kind of messed up the way that you mark the thing to be sent so that most of them didn't reach the place.
It was like we picked the wrong shipping option or something. We were like, this is a package, and they were like, we wanted you to say this is a parcel, and
something like that.
And then so we paid like the wrong amount, and so then if people were like received the package at their door, they had to like cover the like 70 cents or whatever.
That's what it was. Yeah.
And so we have no idea who got it, who didn't.
Nobody's gonna pay. These publications get a million CDs. None of them are gonna pay.
Yeah.
None of them are gonna go through that process to get the. So we blew it.
Oh my god.
And it was like sucks. 200 or it was around
a lot
there.
of packages.
Yeah.
We blew it.
And we thought we were like being smart because we're like, oh, we won't go to the desk. We'll do the one where you do it with the computer yourself. The self checkout.
Yeah.
Traumatizing.
It's just you realize like we're gonna make mistakes until we learn. And sure,
those are expensive mistakes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about not taking people's reduced rates. Like, it's easy for people to underestimate the value, like the challenge and value of their experience. So to this publicist, they thought, well, these guys can send out packages. I send out packages all the time. But there's many little details to doing it that you only get from experience. And so I really find it to be stressful a little bit whenever I'm working for someone at a very reduced rate. Yeah. So I find it very stressful to imagine somebody working for me at a very reduced rate. And
I think it changes your relationship with the work on like a subliminal level. It just like, it shouldn't, you don't want it to, but I feel like there's like, I think it's easier to be more frustrated. I think there's just like a quicker path to frustration or you just like want to do less work for less money, I think. And there's like always a feeling of like, well, this isn't like, there's just like a weird thing there that is like not helpful.
Because you need money.
Of course, yeah.
That's something that sometimes I wonder what David Lynch would think of this kind of conversation, because this podcast, I've been talking about money a lot, and I think that's a big part of being underground, because there's nothing wrong with being underground. There's nothing wrong with the amount of people or like anything with all of this. I'm totally happy just putting my albums out. I'm speaking for myself. I'm totally happy with it.
Yeah.
I just want stability while I do it. I just want the feeling. I probably said this a million times now in this podcast. I just want the feeling that if I spend a day working on my music or 6 hours or whatever, that I don't have to always be like in opportunity cost mode of like, well, you should have been working on something that's going to result in more financial stability. David Lynch,
I think, would agree that money is the last thing on the list, but also you need it to survive.
I think so, because the thing is that he very much needed to take his time, and was very upset when like he was rushed by a studio or something, and he wanted to be able to take his time with the work, and so therefore the budget's got to be there.
Well, look at Eraserhead, because he funded that himself after he spent the money of a grant or whatever he got for it, and then he proceeded making that in sections. Like he'd raise money and then he'd shoot a scene, and then he'd raise money again and shoot the next scene, and then that movie probably took like, I don't know, years to make as a result.
I think it took like 4 years.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
He had fun doing it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to think of him having fun.
Yeah.
I guess you're right that he would not think I'm bad, but it does feel bad to be like, I know which expense I'm gonna cut. The one that makes it so anyone would care to hear what I say at all. The one where I'm making art, But at the same time, it wouldn't be a cut in art. It'd be a cut in how much I spend on art. And there is a difference. And we're always, all of us preaching to people how, whatever your limitations are, you can work in them.
Well, you're cutting on spending on the promotion of it, not on the actual end result of the art, which arguably would be the mix perhaps. But you could still do that yourself, even if you decide to cut on that.
Cutting on the studio time is a big one because Heaven needed to be done in a studio. And so I can't write that kind of album for the next one.
Also, I don't think anyone could have made an album faster than the way you made Heaven in the studio. It was 2 days and you did 10 songs, right?
Damn.
I already written them though.
You had written them.
Whereas when we did Open the Phone and Talk on the Phone with You, I think it was 4 days and we hadn't written the songs.
That's true. We were writing half of them.
I think a little girl named Jessica may have done it faster in the past.
No, I don't think so. I think my dad died was 3 days.
Oh
right,
my
I'm
God.
saying Open the Phone and Talk on the Phone with You though.
Oh yeah.
I need this.
No, it's a great
rush
video.
of this speed, this efficiency. That's what I need.
Bradford Krieger.
Honestly,
Big Nice Studio.
we would love to go to the studio with you. At
That's
some
the
point.
secret, going into the studio.
The secret
With
is
Brad.
Bradford Krieger at Big Nice Studio. Yeah.
But he's like, hurry up. Next song.
No, it's just like he knows, oh, that was good. Now we'll move on.
Next.
It's not like hurry up. It's more like you did it right. He's like good at catching the take, even when you're in your head. And
Yeah, I feel like if same exact takes at my house, I would keep going 15 more takes. And he just goes, we got it. And you just trust him.
And he's right about it.
And he's right, yeah.
The other thing is, though, that also we had Kyle on drums for Heaven. And Kyle Harris is just...
He's good.
I mean, he's an artist with the drums.
Yeah.
He makes these wonderful parts. I didn't write those parts.
Yeah.
He makes the wonderful parts, and then he plays them just like you would if you knew him. You know what I mean? He just plays it like he knows it.
Yeah.
He just made it, but he just plays it.
He plays it like he had played it a lot of times.
3 usable takes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Takes direction very, very well, obviously. And yeah, just it's a wonderful thing.
And Big Nice doesn't have bathrooms, so there's no bathroom breaks and there's no food breaks. So you gotta be quick. I'm just joking. It has bathrooms.
It now has a shower even.
How do you spend 3 full days there without?
You go in the river.
You go in the river.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And it's
right
cold
on
out,
the
so you don't
river.
stay there too long. And
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's an interesting thing, just the idea of not spending any money on anything I can't afford. I think that's probably what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So this year, I don't think your birthday present's going to be as epic as the last two
Oh,
years.
that's okay. I feel very prepared for the life we are in.
Yeah. We have a good life. We don't need anything else.
that's good.
Yeah.
We just got to clean out your office, redo the office. We're going to change things around in her office so that she
I
wants
have a
to be
cool
in there.
plan.
What's the plan? hang on.
plan is-
Tell us about The Office.
Okay. Thank you. I plan to make a course on lyrics and I plan to shoot it in my office. And so I am going to work with someone I work with at my work named Felipa or Pipa. And they are a really incredible artist at my work. They're like the fashion expert.
Felt Mythical on Instagram.
Thank you. Very
Great
good.
artist.
And so they have just like incredible like sewing skills, felting skills, but then also at the same time like went to school for making comics and have really great visual art drawing skills and writing, and they also are trained as a clown, and so just like they're
Interesting.
all over the place, like very, very like fun and like great at expression in a lot, like so many directions. And I just was like, I like everything they do, like color composition, like cutiness of characters. And I was just like, what if I hire my friend and coworker Felipa to design a backdrop that I can use in this lyric course, but then also in my future YouTube videos. And so basically I plan to just have like a blank wall and for them to design it with just like the stuff we talk about and agree on, and like a collection of like a beaded curtain that's like pixel art, and maybe like a big like foam sphere cut in half with like fabric attached to it, and like just like looks like a ball coming out of the wall, like just like all these different like shapes and colors and textures to feel more like me, and like just like have a cool backdrop basically. So that's, I can't wait for that wall to get all fucked up and cool.
Which wall is
Nice.
it now? The one that when you walk in you're facing, or it's the one towards the door?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh right, I remember you told me that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so exciting.
I know.
That's just gonna make making a good YouTube video so easy. You just be in front of it.
That's
and
why
it'll
I'm
look cool.
also looking at like, how can I just get one fancy light with like a big diffuse panel, and have only one light be like my whole life from now on. Because I was just like, it seems like the folks who have a light with a diffusion box or a lantern or umbrella with the grid on it, it just seems like the lighting, it really matters, and it's difficult for me in the past historically with the lights that we have. So
I'm bad at our lighting has been hard for me as well.
Yeah.
You can learn though. It's not too hard.
Thanks.
You'll pick it up.
Yeah, you have good
You
lighting.
got good light.
Yeah.
Do you got one big light?
I got one big light and I got a white wall that I'm bouncing the light off of. So it's a big
Ooh.
reflection
Big
panel.
diffuse. Yeah. Can we see this, or is it too tricky to show us?
That's going to be tricky, but I can show you
Okay.
after
Okay, that
this.
sounds good. Yeah. Cool.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there and it didn't look too expensive and crazy. It was just
Cool.
done well.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the
show
plan
and
for
tell?
the lyric thing? The lyric course?
The plan?
Mhm.
Good question. So I currently am still doing final steps to like finish the live in studio that Justice Cow recorded and filmed in June. It's all edited video wise. It needs a couple more steps, and once that is done, the next thing on my docket is to just start writing this lyric course, and also I have exciting new ideas for YouTube direction that are my new things.
Cool.
Yeah. That's me.
That's good stuff.
2025 will be a good year of Justice Cow.
I think so. And I got a lot of shows going on.
I noticed.
I've been playing shows. Yeah. It's so, just I was gonna say it's so hard to post about all the shows that I have, but it's
So
just
hard to post about all the shows.
it's like I want it. I have so many people who follow my Instagram account who are not regional that I hope that a post about a show is interesting enough that they just like get a good feeling and don't feel like that's the only reason why they watched it was for a show that they can't attend, but like they get something else from it. And so I feel like I always have to keep that in mind. And I don't know if everyone is thinking that way, but that's sure how I feel like
That's
I've
fair.
created that.
That's tricky when you have an online audience and then a local one.
Yep. And I have no control over who sees what.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I love it. I love that you can't control who sees what.
You'd think with all this technology. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they don't want us to have control.
I think that we have to find a way to get off of social media in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
We have to have a career that is not completely based on it. In fact, we need to be building our own websites where we host our best work.
We go back to
And-
mailing lists.
Well, physical mailing lists maybe.
Actually
I just
sending
feel like-
letters out.
Yeah, because I feel like the email mailing lists, so many of them just become another email, and
That's true.
I just have a feeling that the social media is mind control, and that we are being increasingly and consistently manipulated in ways where we feel like it's our choices we're making and that we're correct, but we're actually being constantly prompted in a certain direction psychologically,
Right.
to the point where you look at yourself 5 years ago and you're like, what? I was posting that stuff? I think that's a sign that you're being prompted in a strange way. If you look back on your feed and you don't recognize the guy who was posting the things you were saying. This especially was the case for me on Twitter, which I just deleted.
Wow. What did you feel from looking at that?
Well, I talk different on Twitter than I do on the other ones.
Mm.
And I go
Ah.
back to old Twitter and it's like ugly, stupid bullshit that I'm saying that's not so offensive or anything. It's just
Right,
it's
right,
just
right.
not me. And
It makes sense though, because you adjust to the platform and to the
Yeah.
audience you have on them. Like
who
you're
knows
also
to what extent?
well, you're still like a multifaceted person. Like there's different sides to you, and I guess Twitter pulls out a different side of you than Instagram does, in a way.
Yeah. It's just sometimes I don't think we have personalities. We're just constantly auditioning identities for each other. So like
Sure.
you have this idea of like an identity that says certain things and does certain things, and then you
Yeah.
see based on how other people react, like, is that me? Was that right? And
Yeah.
like it's happening right now. Like I'm saying this and I'm looking to you guys like, do I sound really stupid or bad or mean or like crazy or like whatever? Like
All of the
you
above.
try out yeah, well, and you're okay with that. And so I try out I try it out, and then I'm constantly given feedback by the people around me. Yes, that is you. No, that's not you. And so I think when you're in these places where it's just you on a pedestal talking, and then everyone has to hear you, and then the responses are inferior because they're comments, whereas the post is big and has the microphone.
Right.
I think that you sort of see a failure of those auditions, like a failure of the communication of like who you are. So for instance, I have friends, when they post on Twitter, I wouldn't want to be friends with them if that's what they actually were like.
Right.
It's always negative and mean and like
Yeah.
and snarky and ironic, and like these are some of the most genuine people, and that's how they are on Twitter, and I just wouldn't
Yeah.
want to be friends with them if I didn't know them any better. And you see that a little bit in Instagram stories, less so these days. So anyway, I do think it's a shame to be constantly luring people into these environments with our art and
Our gifts.
our gifts. It's like we're bearing all this wonderful fruit, and then they're taking all the good stuff
Mm-hmm.
and and like every now and then giving it to someone, but mostly just throwing it out. And I do think that the current paradigm is going to change because of the new ways wars are waged with information wars, and like misinformation wars, and looking at what Instagram has done lately with how they just how the environment of Instagram is shaped by the politics that are like convenient politics, and of course how much that happened with Twitter. I just think people are going to be fed up. It's either going to be platforms full of angry people or hypnotized people or both, and anyone who's making really great art on it is going to just be like the thing that gives the people who run these platforms like a way out of taking blame. They're like, look, we're connecting people. Look at all the beautiful art that's made. We are creating this wonderful community. It's human nature that's going wrong.
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of it anymore. I have to be at the moment, I think.
Yeah.
But we'll find a way out. I have one idea. There's a company called Samply that we're talking with, and basically it's like a high fidelity streaming environment where the artists upload their own music. The listeners don't pay unless the artist wants them to. So it's like Bandcamp kind of, like you can charge if you want or have it be free, but it's all just like a really convenient streaming setup. So I think making your own website with something like Samply embedded in it, where you put all your music there, and it's very high quality streaming, because that's the key. It's quick.
Yeah.
It's easy to use.
You can download it.
Yeah, you can download the tracks. So if you have that embedded in your website, then you've got, okay, I have a way to bring people in to my listening environment, my music environment, and of course you'd still, being able to. They'd have to have the Samply app, I guess, on their phone.
Not if it were embedded in your website.
Yeah, but I don't. Who wants to be driving their car and decide, who do I want to listen to? I'll go to Ben Levin's website, or I'll go to Hugo's website. Like,
totally.
You don't want to go to different websites. But I'm just thinking out loud, like how you could take the reins back. You'd have to definitely be content with a much smaller audience. I think that would be fine, though. I think that would be pleasant.
But also
I still like the idea of the Patreon, like creating your community on Patreon and having, special events with them, and then of course you're niching down and you're doing your own thing separate from social media in a sense, too.
I might be like misquoting this change, but a few months ago, Patreon decided to, I think from like October 30th on or something like that, they were like, we are no longer like you can no longer sign up for someone's Patreon the same way. You have to go through the iTunes app, and because the iTunes app charges them extra, that they have moved that charge onto the them taking a deeper cut from the artist.
Oh, right.
And also they just recommended that artists charge more that's how the
tariffs are going to be.
Yeah. And so I am like, I have known for a long time that Patreon is not really super concerned with the underground artists. They are most interested in the really big Patreon accounts. Like they're that's where all their like focus goes, even if they're like always making videos and tips like here's how to engage with your whatever. They are not, it feels like they are really not there for us, and I feel like that decision to funnel everything through the iTunes app and charge an extra 30% that gets cut from what the patrons give to the artists, feels like an action that is like shows where their like true motives are at, and it feels
that's fair.
Like
I do think that's only through the iPhone app, though. Like if you sign up for someone's Patreon through a website, through your computer or whatever, I think that wouldn't be the case. But yeah, don't quote me on that.
I also just think it's.
I do mean generally speaking, doesn't have to be Patreon. I like the idea of like
yeah. But like what Patreon is doing. Yeah.
I don't think it's entirely fair to say that. I feel like Patreon took too much seed funding, and so now they I think have to make choices like that. Like they can't they're too big to not focus on the big patrons. I do think Jack Conte back there is a good advocate. I think ultimately we're like lucky it's him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think generally Patreon is maybe too big.
It just like if it's rough when you see what they show you every month that you're getting from your patrons, and then you see what actually gets into your
Sure.
bank account, and the difference is
Yes.
a lot more than I would like.
No, I'm with you on the it sucks now, and I'm with you on that. That's wrong that happened.
Yeah.
And also, it's very hard to find a correlation between making. Okay, let me put it this way: you can make your best stuff for your patrons, and your Patreon will still shrink. The thing that gets your Patreon to grow is making less good stuff for your patrons and more viral content and talking about your Patreon. If we zoom out, the way that you get a big Patreon is by talking about your Patreon a lot, promoting Patreon a lot, and getting a lot of attention. So if you make really good stuff, that definitely will help. People want to be patrons, but still,
Right.
like, the key to a big Patreon is constantly talking about it. So I think that is the problem with Patreon, is that you have to promote the hell out of Patreon to get your Patreon big.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you had your own subscription service, which is hard to build, and of course there's a reason why Patreon's convenient.
Yeah.
But it would be great if you were constantly talking about your own thing. And I think that's what the future is. I think people should be into fewer artists more. Because I'm just thinking of the discovery features of Tidal and stuff, and it's like a lot of artists with a little bit of paying attention to some of them. But it would be great to, like, Jessica's thinking of getting one of those light phones that doesn't have the internet on it, but she'd have to go and buy her albums and then download them. And it's like, I'm not trying to have us all go backwards technologically, but I think we could go, I guess, backwards from a philosophical standpoint to be like, this idea of virality has inflated our sense of how many people we need to reach to be effective artists or whatever. And it'd be better if we had more consistent, better quality experiences for fewer people. That, 1,000 True Fans thing. I still think 1,000 True Fans is a better future.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think there's a lot of charms to going back, but ultimately it's forgetting also a lot of the nuisance we experienced back then.
I think part of why I'm interested in a light phone is because, like, I've had the taste of Spotify is like access to pretty much all the music vibe for now, like 10 years or whatever, and there's something very nostalgic and comforting about shrinking the pool of what you pay attention to at a time, and like deliberately taking a risk to buy an album that you're interested in but don't love yet, and with like the hope that you might love it. And I have just found, like, I think that there's this FOMO of missing the great music being fed to you randomly through an algorithm that is just like a big feature of why people want Spotify or other like streaming apps in their lives, to hopefully find another album that makes them feel really connected to themselves, really, and their experiences. And I think that it's a cool experiment that I don't know how it's gonna go, but I feel like the chance of me learning all the lyrics of an entire album are a lot higher if I'm downloading and only listening to a certain amount of music
Yeah.
rather than
We'll have to see how
anything
that
at any
goes.
time.
That'll be a good episode if
Yeah.
you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About how that's going.
Yeah.
That'd be a cool experiment we could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also just like I for a long time after I got Spotify, I was still buying my favorite albums, and I don't know exactly when, but at some point I stopped doing that. I stopped being like, this is an album that really meant a lot to me, so I'll buy it.
Yeah.
Time just it shifted into never buying any music, and
Right.
I'm excited to end that chapter of no matter how much an album affects me, I don't financially support them.
I have that same experience, but I think I know why. It's just because it's gotten more expensive. Like I remember buying a vinyl record for 20 euros and now it's easily 30, 40 euros, which that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and I also never got into the habit of buying vinyl, but I personally would just buy their like iTunes out, just the digital version. And that's probably how I plan to do that in the future, in this next era. But yeah, I totally see that. And also like I feel like now I have the wherewithal to be like, okay, well, Bandcamp is where I will buy it if it's there, or
right, yeah,
Samply if it's there.
I like Bandcamp. I don't like Patreon. I like YouTube half, and I don't like Instagram. I don't like TikTok. And I hate Twitter. So which ones did I like? Bandcamp?
Yeah.
And I don't like Patreon.
Yeah.
I think I don't like Patreon. I like that Patreon exists. It's better than when it doesn't.
Yeah.
I think it's just I've grown to not like the fact that I've seen such a decline. I think algorithmic discovery has some real pros to it.
Yes.
But it is sort of like discovery takes you to here, but then it doesn't. It has this sort of diminishing returns thing where I
guess I just don't also.
I don't know why I am.
I don't understand the setup of Patreon anymore. Also, because of what you said with like all the tips they give you for growing your Patreon. And it's like, well, make a free tier and then people will be prompted to become a paying member and it'll be great. We have these numbers and it's like this amount converts and whatever. And now I've seen this huge increase of like free members. None of them fucking converted.
No.
What the fuck?
What am I supposed to? And it's like now I have to make twice as many things. Look, I'm working so hard to make the things I'm making. All I do is on Patreon right now is tell people what's going on, the news. But then I thank them for helping me with all this stuff that I'm making.
Yeah.
And I think that is what is fair to ask of somebody who's already working as much and as hard as they can to make the best stuff they can and dealing with all the emotional psychological torture of posting your best work on social media. Like that is the right amount to ask, is that they just let you know what they did and do their best. It's not right to ask them to have a free tier where they make something really enticing extra that makes people say, I really wonder what the paid tier is like, and then make the paid tier so much better than the enticing free tier that they're just like, fuck, how could I have not paid for this? I can't imagine that scenario where I'm like, hey guys, here's the free tier. With this, you get my music. And then it's like, hey guys, here's the paid tier. With this, you get my movies.
Yeah.
Are you
Which
kidding?
is stuff you should be posting on social media anyway, because
you
it
can't
gets
not.
Exactly.
You can't make your music and just post it on Patreon.
Yeah.
What happened? I forgot.
This is exactly what I struggle with too, though, because I have all these ideas of like, oh, I could do this, and this would be so cool, but like, no one's gonna sign up for the Patreon because I don't have the work public to bring them into Patreon. But if I put the work public, then I don't have anything to put on my fucking Patreon. What
Yeah.
the fuck?
Yeah. Also, I don't know if y'all have experienced this, but I find that when I haven't posted for a while and then I post, people drop out because it's a reminder that they're paying for a subscription.
Exactly.
And they're just like, okay, I've given enough. Or I shouldn't be paying for this subscription. This is extra right now and I need to be like focusing on my other expense,
That's
and
exactly right. There's been moments where I've been like, maybe I shouldn't post this update because I'll actually lose money if I do that.
It is like the most opposite of what you would hope for that exists, is that posting is a reminder of a subscription that they don't need.
Yep.
I just think it's like if you have a dedicated following and you talk about Patreon a lot, you will get patrons coming in. And getting a growing dedicated following pretty much means a YouTube channel. I mean, what else is there where you can talk about a Patreon?
Yeah, I think
consistently.
I've thought about when I play shows at the merch table, I have you can pay for my merch through Venmo or you can sign up for my Patreon QR codes. But I also think 0 people have signed up for
That's a really good idea.
In real life.
That's a brilliant idea.
Thank you.
I think when we were doing that kind of thing with Bent Knee, it was the same thing where it wasn't happening. Because I think you have to be on the stage and say, please sign up for my Patreon. It's the single most helpful thing to get Justice Cow going. And you have to give this impassioned speech about Patreon and how much Patreon empowers you. Mm-hmm. And what would be really nice is if all these people who like your show just like went to the next one or or joined your website or whatever. It would be really nice. It would be really nice if you didn't have to then, once they're in, consistently, like endlessly provide, like on a schedule or something, endlessly. Like, I guess what I'm saying is just basically like we have to make a lot of content just that is just like this like fluff to keep people around. But really those people want to see another show, so they join the Patreon to help you play more shows. Right. It's like that's the basic psychology. But once they're in the environment, they're in a pay service, and it's like, what am I paying for this? Right. What am I paying for this? I guess. Right. Yeah.
It's just it feels like all the money toward music ever since paying for music has been out of the picture, feels like it's all going to the wrong place. Like, it's like, okay, now we're all t-shirt companies. Okay, now we're all on this Patreon service where we put stuff sometimes, but also, like, you don't have to be on it, and, like, is it worth it? I don't know. Yeah. You feel like you're helping, but also maybe that you shouldn't be paying for it for the rest of your life. Probably.
You're making it seem that supporting you means supporting Patreon, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, la, 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 la.
The thing is, nobody ever made the normal people who are making money on Patreon most of them probably not. Most of us probably never made any money on our albums before when people were paying for them. Most of us probably didn't have any sort of creator economy or any sort of income source related to their art.
Right.
That is something that Patreon has helped emerge. It is an optimistic
True.
concept, and Jack Conte, I think, is a good person with the good ideas and generally did the right thing. And I just think there's new struggles and new problems with Patreon that no one could really predict, that have to do with, I think, our whole societal relationship to art and big tech, and how big tech has always been the intermediary between art and people and money and artists. And the fact that big tech is so big and the people who are involved in that are making so much money, and the artists that are like adding a lot of value to the platform aren't, I think that's probably a bigger problem than any of this stuff we're talking about now. But it's not like the past was good. I really don't think that there was no way we could even make a podcast affordably in the past.
Right.
And not that even a podcast existed. It was just, we have a better situation now than back when people were paying for albums.
Yeah.
So even though I'm criticizing Patreon,
Sure.
I want it to be in the context that we're still better off with it. It's just there, like, you can just see across society that there are these little things that could change, like people paying taxes when they're rich. Little things that could stimulate so many people, and so many people would buy stuff. You could just, I think you could fix the economy. I think here's a new idea. Just tax the billionaire people the right way. So I do think that would,
Radical.
Seems like that would go really far. And stop spending so much money on war.
God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That'd be
solved.
Good. Yes.
Oh, say. Wow. Solved it.
Yep.
There we go.
I finally did it.
My butt hurts too.
What?
My butt hurts too.
Like the sequel? My butt hurts. My butt hurts too.
The Return.
The Return. My butt hurts the Return. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
What about show and tell Mole Hugo?
Mole Hugo. Speaking of Patreon, I'm doing a Patreon show and tell with my remaining patrons. So we have a nice little monthly get together accountability thing. It's fun. It's cool.
Ooh, I love it.
So that's happening now.
The remaining patrons.
The remaining patrons.
God bless them.
In context of David Lynch, I got a Cineville pass, and I'm going to go to the cinema every hecking day because now I have a pass for that. So that's pretty sick.
Whoa, that's really cool.
They're doing a showing of 4 of Lynch's movies as a retrospective.
Wow.
So I'm going to go to all of them, of course.
That's wonderful.
And
That's amazing.
it's going to be fun. Yeah.
That's hella cool.
Things I'm making, I've been a bad person, but I'm practicing a lot of guitar. That's good.
You got to earn your love, Hugo.
Not directly album stuff, but good, I think. And the album, accountability, right? I got to do it. I'll have something at the end of the month.
Cool.
I'll get back into it.
Well, we all know it's good to judge whether you're a good person or not based on your output.
Very true. Yeah.
So thank you so much for your output, all the good people, and
keep it
to
up.
the bad people.
How about Mole Ben?
Mole Ben is working 2 hours a day on the modes course, which is a slow pace for how long and epic it is, but it's a pace that is making is keeping me from it's making it possible to keep working on it every day, because at this point, so making a course is a rewarding it's a rewarding thing to make a course. It's, I think, a generally helpful thing to exist, because on YouTube it's hard to learn things because retention is more important than like having a long, really deep dive series. So I think making courses is a good thing to do. It's usually helpful for my income. And I like the way it is. The actual fun factor of making a course is quite low. It's like writing out scales and writing out notation and screenshotting them and then making them move a little so you notice the thing that changed, and a lot of editing fonts and text to go in time with things you're saying. And it's not
right.
It's not unpleasant. It's just I've got 3 hours of talking to cover in motion graphics, basically, and it just it feels like Sisyphusian almost, because there's just so much more to go, and I spend 30 minutes going C D E F G A B, and then making D bigger, and then making D pink, and then moving D to the left and moving C to the end, and then D E F G A B C. And now D is still pink, and then this word comes out that's pink, and it says Dorian. And then we say Phrygian, and then D stops being pink, and E gets bigger, and E is pink. And then D moves down and moves right and moves up, and everything else moves over. And like that is 2 hours a day is fine.
What happens after that?
I'm making season 2 of Sweetie
No, I
Cutie
meant after
Universe.
F.
After what?
After the F. Like, how do the...
Oh.
You gotta watch the course.
You gotta learn the course.
Hey.
Sweeties and Cuties Universe season 2 is bigger and badder than ever. It's such a epic, wild ride, and I've got 12 of the 15 songs done.
Dang.
I have to mix them, but I got 3 more songs to write, and then we move on to animation. And because Instagram Reels can now be 3 minutes, that means YouTube Shorts are 3 minutes, TikTok is like infinity, and Instagram Reels are 3 minutes. So on all platforms that I release Sweeties and Cuties on, my limit has doubled. So I've got a lot of 2-minute songs. That's the longest I have right now. And so the season ends up needing about almost 30 minutes of animation is what this season is going to need. And that will be there's going to be a lot of showing and telling before that's done, I think.
Uh-huh.
And then the final piece of that is I'm working on a toy line for Sweeties and Cuties. I did look up how much it costs to make a toy line. That number was higher than I expected. But I'm working with Ricky Rainbowbeard, who is an excellent artist here, who has made toys, and he's helping me. I want to make these toys. I just want to make a physical item that is beautiful and brings joy. It is just like, I love having my environment with all these memories. There's little things from when I was a kid back there, and I think that it would be just so nice to take Sweeties and Cuties out of this digital realm and into some kind of physical realm. And the toy line is looking so cool. I made some really cool designs, and
makes a lot of sense for Sweeties and Cuties. It's a really cool idea. I like it.
Yeah, and Ricky Rainbowbeard's got a lot of cool ideas for how to translate these characters into toys. So I'm hoping I figure out how to get that made. I know I will. It'll just be another brainstorming, creative, figuring out thing. That's something I would do a Kickstarter for, because I do believe it's much more of a product. Like, nobody gets those kinds of things for free in the world. So I think it is something that could be kicked and then started. Like, okay, I can afford the first batch and sell those and use that money to make the next batch, and then sell those, and the last batch is the one where I can't sell them, and I think that could be sustainable once it gets started.
Yeah. Cool. Very good. Shall we say goodbye?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. everybody.
Good talking to you.
Yeah.
Yes, my mom